morning everyone and a warm good morning to all the students. Once again welcome you all for the chemistry webinar. Myself Mrs. Sridevi Polu, Principal TSMS Poodur, is privileged to introduce you our chemistry PGT Mrs. Madhavi from TSMS Poodur Vikarabad. See, already you have heard Mrs. Madhavi. See, she has taught you two sessions regarding the electrochemistry and the surface chemistry. And today, Madam is again here to explain you the P block elements. Dear children, already in our first year, we have learned about the periodic classification of elements, isn't it? And then in the periodic classification of elements, you have heard about the 1A group elements, 2A group, third group, and the fourth group. And this is time to hear about the P block elements. And today, Madam is here to teach you about the 5A group elements. That is a nitrogen family. And children, here I want to mention you one point that we have completed 40% of chemistry syllabus from intermediate second year. And I thank all the webinar team members for their undue support for giving us this opportunity. See, good morning, Madhvi ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. See, as you have continuously worked to give 3 sessions of webinars for intermediate second year.
Thank you.
I sincerely appreciate your efforts and thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are privileged to be here as a part of this webinar team. Thank you, Madhvi ma'am. I would like to hand over the session to Madhvi ma'am. Thank you.
So once again, I would like to thank all the coordinators who are conducting this webinar very successfully. Thank you so much, ma'am, giving this opportunity again to me. Thank you. So good morning, everyone. So today we are going to discuss P block elements, in that 15 group elements. So which is the 6th chapter in your syllabus, children. So let us see what are the subtopics this 15 group elements consist. So occurrence, atomic properties and physical properties and chemical properties of 15 group elements. And then we'll discuss dinitrogen, ammonia, oxides of nitrogen, nitric acid, phosphorus, allotropic forms. In that we'll discuss phosphine and phosphorus halides, oxoacids of phosphorus. So these are the subtopics that are in 15 group elements. Now in this session, we are going to cover occurrence of and atomic properties, in that electronic configuration, atomic and ionic radii, ionization enthalpy and electronegativity. So these things we are going to discuss. Next, physical properties, chemical properties, in that oxidation states, next reactivity towards hydrogen, oxygen, halogens, and with metals we are going to discuss, children. So next, dinitrogen. So in that preparation, properties and uses of dinitrogen, and ammonia. So in that also preparation, properties and uses of ammonia. So these are the subtopics we are going to cover today's class. Okay, so let us start today's session, children. So before going to start 15 group elements, first let us have a look at a periodic table. So this is the periodic table. Already you have learned about a periodic table in first year, children, as ma'am already told you. So see here in a periodic table, we have 4 blocks, is it not? So this is as S block, P block, D block and F block. In S block, how many groups are present? 2 groups are present, and in P block 6 groups are present, and in D block, so which is present at the center of the periodic table, D block consists of 10 groups, and this is the F block. These are F block elements, so which are present at the bottom of the periodic table. But our concentration is on P block elements, is it not? So now let us see. So these are P block elements. Now this P block elements consists of how many groups? 13 to 18. Okay, total 6 groups. It consists of 6 groups. Is it not, children? Okay, first and second groups consist of is S block, and P block consists of 6 groups, 13 to 18. We can call it them as a 3rd A, 4th A, 5th A, 6th A, 7th A, and 0 group, or 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, like that. So 13 and 14 group already you have learned in first year, children. Now in second year we are going to learn about 15, 16, 17 and 18 group elements. So today we are going to discuss about these 15 group elements. What are the 15 group elements? Nitrogen, phosphorus, arsenic, antimony, bismuth and moscovium. Right, children? So now let us see 15 group elements. So 15 group elements consist of nitrogen, phosphorus, arsenic, antimony, bismuth and moscovium. So now see the atomic number of these elements, children. So nitrogen is having atomic number 7, phosphorus is having 15, arsenic 33, antimony 51 and bismuth 83. So children, here if you know the atomic number of first element, automatically remaining elements atomic number we can able to calculate just simply adding 8, 18, 18, 32. See children, so if you know the atomic number of nitrogen 7, so if you add 8 to it, you will get 15, is it not? So which is the atomic number of phosphorus. If you add 18 to 15, you will get 33, which is the atomic number of arsenic. So 8, 18, 18, 32. If you add like that, you can able to get the atomic numbers of all the elements present in that group. Is it clear, children? Now, one more thing you have to remember is, so in a nitrogen, all these elements are belongs to 15 group because their outer shell electronic configuration, see children. So Ns to Np3 is the outer shell electronic configuration. So how many electrons are present in the outer shell? 3 plus 2, 2 electrons in s orbital and 3 electrons in p orbital. So total 5. So that's why this group is 50A or 15 group. Is that clear, children? Just by simply seeing the electronic configuration, we can able to predict its group number and period number. Group number, how can you calculate group number? Just simply count the valence electrons, outer shell electrons. So this is the outer shell. In outer shell, s orbital is having 2 and p orbital is having 3. Total 3 plus 2, 5 electrons. That's why it belongs to 50A group, right? Or 15 group. Is it clear? So now how can you predict the period number? Just simply seeing the outer shell. So for nitrogen, outer shell is 2. So that's why it belongs to second period. And for phosphorus, outer shell is 3. So that's why it belongs to third period. So like that, so we can able to predict the group number and period number by just simply seeing the electronic configuration of a element. Is that clear, children? Okay. So this is about the introduction of 15 group elements. Now let us see the occurrence of 15 group elements. Okay. So nitrogen, we know that in the atmosphere, 78% of atmosphere consists of nitrogen only, dinitrogen, that is N2, and the remaining oxygen and the remaining carbon dioxide and all other gases. So, but 78% maximum percentage of atmosphere consists of nitrogen only, and nitrogen is also occur in earth crust in the form of sodium nitrate, that is NaNO3. It is called as a chili saltpeter, and potassium nitrate called as Indian saltpeter. So nitrogen not only in the atmosphere, it also obtained in the earth crust in the form of sodium nitrate, NaNO3, and potassium nitrate. So now nitrogen, it also found in plants and animals in the form of proteins. So proteins, amino acids. So amino acids consists of nitrogen. Okay, is that clear, children? So this is about the occurrence of nitrogen. Now coming to the phosphorus. So phosphorus, it occurs in a apatite family, as in the form of minerals. So phosphate rocks, so they consist of this calcium phosphate and calcium halides. See children, what is the formula? Ca9PO4 6 and CaX2, where X is fluorine or chlorine or OH. Okay, so suppose in place of X, if a fluorine is present, then we can call it as a fluoroapatite. C9PO4 6 CaF2. Like that, in the mineral form, in phosphate rocks, phosphorus occurs in the earth crust. Next, phosphorus is also an essential constituent of animals and plants. So it is present in bones and living cells. Right, children? Okay. So next, in milk and eggs also, phosphorus is present as a phosphoproteins. So nitrogen also present in plants and animals as in the form of proteins, and phosphoproteins consist of phosphorus, right? Is that clear, children? Milk and egg consists of phosphoproteins, right? So now coming to arsenic and antimony and bismuth. So these three elements, they occur in the earth crust in the form of sulfide ores, right? Is it clear? So arsenic, antimony and bismuth, they obtained from the earth crust in the form of sulfides. Next, coming to last element in the group, that is moscovium. It is a radioactive element. So radioactive element, and it is synthesized in the laboratory. So that's why, children, since it is a radioactive element, the chemistry of moscovium is very difficult to study, because it is synthesized in the laboratory, and it obtained in the very small quantities. So that's why the study of moscovium is very difficult, because it is a radioactive element and it is man-made element, right? Is that clear, children? So this is about the occurrence of 15 group elements. Now let us see the electronic configuration. Just now only we have seen. So these elements are having general electronic configuration, that is NS2-NP3. Okay, so NS2-NP3 is the general electronic configuration. In s orbital, 2 electrons are present, and p orbital, 3 electrons are present. Okay, so children, we know that in p orbital, how many electrons we can able to fill? Total 6 electrons we can able to fill. But in 15 group elements, how many electrons are present? Only 3 electrons are present in p orbital, is it not? So 3 electrons means it is a half filled. P orbital is half filled. That's why we know completely filled and half filled electronic configuration is a stable configuration. So because of that, in p orbital, it is having 3 electrons, it is half filled. That's why these 15 group elements are having a half filled electronic configuration in p orbital. That's why stable electronic configuration. 15 group elements are having stable electronic configuration because of half filled in p orbital, right? Is it clear, children? 3 electrons are present in p orbital. The general electronic configuration of 15 group elements is ns2 np3. Now let us see the electronic configuration of all the elements. See here, children, you have to concentrate little bit, because it is not like that of first group and second group. It is little bit different. Just to see here, nitrogen in inner helium configuration, along with that outer shell configuration is 2s2 2p3, and for phosphorus 3s2 3p3 along with neon. And along with here, you have to concentrate here, children. In case of arsenic, along with the noble gas configuration and outer shell configuration, it is having extra 10d electrons in the inner shell, not in the outer shell. In inner shell, inner shell is called as penultimate shell. In penultimate shell, it is having 10d electrons. So that, see the difference, children, for phosphorus to arsenic. So phosphorus to arsenic, so inner is noble gas configuration and outer shell configuration in nearly same, but the difference is that here the in inner cell 10d electrons are present. So this is about arsenic. And antimony is also having krypton 4d10, 5s2 and 5p3. It is also having in inner shell 10d electrons extra. Next, in case of bismuth, you have seen see here, along with the 10d inner electrons, and it is having 14 f electrons in anti-penultimate shell. So children, here in bismuth, 14 along with the 10d electrons in penultimate shell and 14 f electrons in anti-penultimate shell. Suppose outer shell is n, then penultimate shell is n-1, and the anti-penultimate shell is n-2, is it not? So outer shell is 6 minus 1, that is 5, which is the inner shell, called as the penultimate shell. It is having 10 electrons in penultimate shell and 14 electrons in anti-penultimate shell. So these are the differences in electronic configuration of these elements, children: nitrogen, phosphorus, arsenic, antimony, and bismuth. They are having NS2 NP3 configuration, general electronic configuration, top to bottom. If you move, so the number of shells goes on increasing. Second shell is the outer shell in the case of nitrogen. Third shell is the outer shell in case of phosphorus. Fourth shell in arsenic. Fifth shell in antimony, and sixth shell is the in case of bismuth. Like the top to bottom, if you move, so number of shells goes on increases. Is that clear? So this is about electronic configuration of 15 group elements. So one more thing you have to learn here: 15 group elements, they consist of nitrogen, phosphorus, arsenic, antimony, and bismuth, and moscovium. So in these elements, some elements top to bottom, if you move, so metallic character increases. Children, here in P block elements, yes, in the case of S block elements, all are metals only, alkali metals and alkaline earth metals. First group are alkali metals and second group are alkaline earth metals. But here in P block elements, metals also exist, non-metals and metalloids also. So in 15 group elements, top to bottom, if we move, so metallic character increases. So top elements, which are top elements? Nitrogen and phosphorus. These are non-metals, and arsenic and antimony are metalloids. What are metalloids? Which can show both metallic and non-metallic nature, are called as metalloids. So arsenic and antimony are metalloids, and bismuth and moscovium are typical metals. Because top to bottom, if we move in a group, so metallic character increases, right children? Nitrogen, and remember, nitrogen and phosphorus are non-metals, arsenic and antimony are metalloids, bismuth and moscovium are typical metals. Okay. Now coming to another atomic property, that is atomic and ionic radii. So in case of electronic configuration, we have seen, children, see here, in case of electronic configuration, top to bottom, if we move in a group, number of shells goes on increasing, is it not? Second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, so goes on, number of shells goes on increasing. So as the number of shells increases from top to bottom, the atomic size also increases. Atomic and ionic sizes, top to bottom, increases. The increase from nitrogen to phosphorus is more, okay, but from arsenic to bismuth is size increase is less. Why? Because they are having inner 10d and 14f electrons. Is it not? Arsenic to bismuth, if we move, if you see the electronic configuration, so they are having extra 10d and 14f electrons in their penultimate shell and anti-penultimate shell. So because of that, the size increase is not that much as in the case of nitrogen and phosphorus. Is it clear, children? Again, I'm repeating. So we have seen the electronic configuration. So top to bottom, if you move, the number of shells goes on increasing. So because of increase in number of shells, atomic and ionic sizes also increases. So nitrogen to phosphorus, the increase is more. Whereas in case of arsenic to bismuth, the size increase is not that much because they are having extra 10d and 14f electrons. So see, children, see the difference. So first group elements, if you see the first group element, the increase is much. Okay, top to bottom, if you move, number of shells are increasing, so the increase is much from top to bottom. Whereas in case of the 15 group elements, if you see, the increase is not that much, is it not? Okay, so yeah, it is increasing, but the increase is not that much because of the presence of 14 f electrons and 10d electrons in penultimate shell and anti-penultimate shell. Is it clear, children? So this is about atomic and ionic radii of 15 group elements. Next, coming to ionization enthalpy. What is ionization enthalpy? The amount of energy required to remove an electron from an isolated gaseous neutral atom. Already we have seen in the first year, children. So what is ionization enthalpy? It is the amount of energy required to remove an electron from an isolated gaseous neutral atom. So we know the relation between ionization enthalpy and the atomic size, is it not? So both are inversely related. So yes, so top to bottom, ionic size or atomic size increases. So that's why ionization enthalpy decreases, because atomic size and ionization energy are inversely related. So that's why if you move down the group, so ionization enthalpy decreases, because size increases, ionization enthalpy decreases. Okay, children. Okay, so now coming to comparison with the 14 group elements. We know, children, left to right, if you move in a periodic table, size decreases. So once size decreases means ionization enthalpy, yes, ionization enthalpy increases. Size decreases, then ionization enthalpy increases. Okay, so that's why 15 group elements are having a small size, and because of that they are having a high energy when ionization enthalpy when compared with 14 group elements, because 15 group elements are present on right side of the 14 group elements. So that's why, so when compared with 14 group elements, 15 group elements are having small size. Because of that they are having high ionization enthalpy when compared with 14 group elements. So left to right, if we move, then what happens? Size decreases. 15 group elements are present on right side of 14 group elements. So because of that, 15 group elements are having small size. So because of that, they are having a high ionization enthalpy when compared with the 14 group elements. So one more point you have to remember here, children, that is delta IH1 is less than delta IH2 is less than delta IH3. What is delta IH1? First ionization enthalpy. Delta IH2 is second ionization enthalpy. Delta IH3 is third ionization enthalpy. What is first ionization enthalpy? The amount of energy required to remove an electron from isolated gaseous neutral atom. Whereas in case of second ionization enthalpy, the amount of energy required to remove an electron from unipositive ion. After losing one electron, it forms cation. So from that cation, we have to remove one more electron. Is that clear, children? And what is delta IH3? Delta IH3 is the third ionization enthalpy. It means the amount of energy required to remove an electron from dipositive ion, means cation which is having a +2. So from that we have to remove an electron. As the charge on cation increases, means see cation charge +1 to +2 +2 to +3, like that charge on cation increases, then the size also decreases. So as the size decreases, ionization enthalpy increases, because nuclear charge increases. Cation on cation, if the charge on cation increases, size decreases. Why size decreases? Because nuclear charge increases, it attracts the outer electron towards it. So because of that, size decreases. So decrease in size means that increase in ionization enthalpy. So that's why delta IH1 is always less than delta IH2 is less than delta IH3. See, children, you can easily understand by seeing this table. So here you can see the size of these elements. So as we move atomic size, as we move atomic number, atomic masses, as we move from top to bottom, atomic masses increases. So ionization enthalpies, see, children, ionization enthalpies. So as we move down the group, ionization enthalpy decreases, because size is increasing, because new shells adding. So because of that size increasing, enthalpy, ionization enthalpy decreases. As you can see, 1402 and 1012, 947, 834, 703, like that. If you move from top to bottom in a group, so ionization enthalpy decreases because size increases. So you can see the differences, children. First ionization enthalpy, second ionization enthalpy, third ionization enthalpy. So values goes on increasing, because charge on cation increases, size decreases. So once the size decreases, ionization enthalpy increases. So because of that, Always first ionization enthalpy is less than second, less than third ionization enthalpy. Is that clear, children? So this is about ionization enthalpy. Next, coming to electronegativity. What is electronegativity, children? So the ability of an atom to attract the bond pair of electrons towards it in a compound. So in a compound, the ability of an atom to attract the bond pair of electrons is called as electronegativity. Okay, so this electronegativity is also depends upon atomic size, children. So it is inversely related. As the atomic size increases, electronegativity decreases. So top to bottom atomic size increases because new shells are goes on adding. So that because of that, top to bottom in a group, if you move, atomic size increases. So because of that, electronegativity decreases. So nitrogen is having a small size in the group, 15 group. So it is having high electronegativity. You can see these pictures, children. So this is the Pauling scale. You know that fluorine is having the highest value, that is 4.0, highly electronegative element in the periodic table, that is 4.0 in Pauling scale. So nitrogen is having small size, and in Pauling scale it is having 3.0, children. So if you move top to bottom in a group, 15 group, if you move from nitrogen to bismuth, size goes on increasing. So because of that, electronegativity values goes on decreasing. So nitrogen is having high value. If you move from nitrogen to bismuth, electronegativity values goes on decreasing, right? Is the clear, children? What is electronegativity? The ability of an atom to attract the bond pair of electrons towards it is called as electronegativity. Okay, so electronegativity related to the atomic size, inversely related. As the atomic size increases, electronegativity decreases. So from top to bottom, atomic size increases. So because of that, electronegativity decreases. Nitrogen is having small size in 15 group. That's why it is having high electronegativity. So this is about electronegativity, children. Now coming to the physical. So till now we have discussed atomic properties. Now let us see physical properties, children. So all these elements are polyatomic, means they exist as, suppose nitrogen N2, it exists as N2, and for phosphorus it exists as P4. Like that, they are polyatomic in nature. So nitrogen, it is a diatomic gas because only 2 atoms, N2. So that's why it is exists as a gas, while others are solids because P4, 4 atoms of phosphorus combinedly they are existing. That's why they are solids. Nitrogen is existing as a dinitrogen. That's why it is a gas. Next, we have already seen, children, top to bottom, if you move in a group, metallic character increases. In 15 group, all non-metals, metals and metalloids exist. Nitrogen and phosphorus are non-metals, and arsenic and antimony are metalloids. Bismuth and muscovium are metals, right, children? Next, we know from top to bottom, if you move, boiling points increases because molecular masses increases if you move from top to bottom. So we have seen the molecular masses, children, already in this table. We have seen top to bottom molecular atomic masses, atomic masses 14, 13.97, 74.92, 112.75 and 208.98 as we move from top to bottom. So atomic masses increases. As atomic masses increases, then boiling points, melting points and boiling points also increases. Okay, so then except nitrogen, all elements shows allotropy. What is allotropy? Existing of an element in more than one physical form is called as allotropy. So in 14 groups, children, in first year we have seen. So carbon, it shows allotropic forms, crystalline form and amorphous form. In crystalline form, graphite, diamond, Buckminster fullerenes, like that we have seen. So allotropy means existing an element in more than one physical form is called as allotropy. Nitrogen, it will not show any allotropic forms, whereas phosphorus and other elements, they can show allotropic forms. For example, in case of phosphorus, red phosphorus, black phosphorus, white phosphorus, like that. It can show many types of allotropic forms. Is that clear, children? What is allotropy? Existing an element in more than one physical form is called as allotropy. So this is about physical properties. Again, I'm repeating. So all the elements they are exist as a polyatomic in nature. So nitrogen, it is diatomic. So N2. So it is a gas. Remaining all are solids. And top to bottom, if you move, metallic character increases. So nitrogen and phosphorus are non-metals. Arsenic and antimony are metalloids. Bismuth and masconium are metals. Next, boiling points increases from top to bottom because atomic masses increases from top to bottom. That's why boiling points also increases. Melting points also increases from arsenic and decreases up to bismuth. Next, coming to nitrogen, it will not show any allotropic form, whereas in case of other elements like phosphorus, they can show allotropy. So allotropy means existing an element in more than one physical form is called as allotropic form. So this is about physical properties of 15 group elements, children. Now coming to the chemical properties of 15 group elements. So in that, first we'll see oxidation states and trends in chemical reactivity. So commonly 15 group elements, they show three types of oxidation states: -3, +3 and +5. So these are common oxidation states shown by 15 group elements. Okay, so now see here, the tendency to exhibit -3 oxidation state decreases down the group. So children, just now only we have discussed top to bottom metallic character increases. As metallic character increases, so exhibiting -3 oxidation state decreases because generally metals, they form cations, non-metals, they form anions. So top to bottom metallic character increases. Because of that, they will not show -3 oxidation state. So the stability of -3 oxidation state decreases from top to bottom since the metallic character increases. Next, coming to +5 oxidation state. Stability of +5 oxidation state also decreases from top to bottom because of inert pair effect. Okay, children, the stability of +3 oxidation state increases. Okay, -3 and +5 oxidation state top to bottom decreases, whereas the stability of +3 oxidation state increases due to inert pair effect. Let us see what is inert pair effect. Already in 13 group and 15 group, 13 and 14 group, you have an idea. So even though we'll see what is inert pair effect, children. So because of inert pair effect, +3 oxidation state stability increases from top to bottom, and +5 oxidation state stability decreases. Okay, so along with -3, +3, +5, nitrogen also shows +1, +2, +4 oxidation states also. When combined with oxygen in its oxides, nitrogen can also exhibit +1, +2, +4 along with these common oxidation numbers -3, +3 and +5. Is that clear? So next, phosphorus also shows +1 and +4 oxidation states along with the -3, +3 and +5 common oxidation states. In oxo acids like phosphorus, phosphoric acid, phosphorus acid, hypophosphorus acid. So in those oxo acids, phosphorus shows +1 and +4 oxidation states also along with -3, +3, +5 oxidation states. Okay, is that clear, children? Okay, so one more important point here you have to remember, nitrogen, it undergo disproportionation from +1 to +3. What is disproportionation? Disproportionation reaction, very, very important, children. Disproportionation reaction is nothing but an element simultaneously. So element in one oxidation number, it is simultaneously undergoing oxidation as well as a reduction. Means see here in case of nitrous acid HNO2, what is the oxidation state of nitrogen? +3 is the oxidation number. So nitrous acid, it decomposes to give nitric acid plus water plus nitric oxide, NO. NO is nitric oxide, nitric acid, nitric oxide. So nitrous acid on decomposition gives nitric acid and nitric oxide. So in nitric acid, nitrogen oxidation state is +5. In nitric oxide, nitrogen oxidation state is +2. Okay, so the element in one oxidation number simultaneously increase and decrease has been taken place. So +3 to +5 increase, +3 to +2 is decrease. So such type of reactions are called as disproportionation reactions. So nitrogen undergo disproportionation reaction. So nitrous acid converts into nitric acid and nitric oxide. That +3 is the oxidation state in nitrous acid. Nitrogen oxidation state is +3. In case of nitric acid, nitrogen oxidation state is +5. In case of nitric oxide, nitrogen oxidation state is +2. So increase and decrease simultaneously has been taken place. So this reaction is called as disproportionation reaction. Now coming to inert pair effect, children. So what is inert pair effect? So because of that, the stability of a +3 oxidation state top to bottom increases and +5 oxidation state is decreases. So children, already in electronic configuration we have seen in a higher elements like bismuth, we have seen 14 F electrons and 10 D electrons in inner shells. Extra electrons we have seen along with the outer shell electronic configuration. They are having extra 10 D electrons and 14 F electrons in their penultimate shell and anti-penultimate shell. So because of the presence of extra electrons in the inner shells, so nuclear charge also increases. Because electrons increase means protons will also increase, because number of electrons and protons should be equal. So nuclear charge increases. So because of increase in nuclear charge and poor shielding effect. Why poor shielding effect? Because these electrons are present not in the outer shell, they are present in the inner shell. So because of the poor shielding effect, then what happens? Nuclear charge, it reaches to the outer electrons. Okay, so what is the shielding effect? Shielding effect is nothing but the electrons present in the inner shell, they will not allow the charge of nucleus to reach to the outer shell. So that is called as a screening effect, right children? But because of the presence of extra electrons in 10 D electrons and 14 F electrons in the higher elements in the group, 15 group, so they are allowing the charge, nuclear charge, to reach up to the outer shell because of the poor shielding effect. So because of that, the nucleus is holding the electrons tightly. We know one more point, children. So S orbital is more oriented towards the nucleus than P, than D, than F. So that's why the electrons present in the S orbital, we know the electronic configuration, NS2, NP3 is the general electronic configuration. So the electrons which are present in S orbital, they are more attracted towards the nucleus. So they will not available for the formation of oxidation state. That effect is called as inert pair effect. Again, I'm repeating, reluctance of NS2 electrons to take part in bonding due to the poor shielding effect of intervening D and F orbitals on moving down the group is known as inert pair effect. Okay, so reluctant to participate. So the electrons which are present in S orbital, they will not participate in the bond formation. They are reluctant to formation, okay, bond formation, because they are more attracted towards the nucleus because of poor shielding effect and due to the presence of extra 10 D and 14 F electrons in higher elements. So this is in case of higher elements, children, like bismuth and all. So that's why these two electrons present in S orbital, they will not participate. Then how many electrons are present in P orbital? 3 electrons are present. So that's why 3 electrons will participate in the bond formation for showing oxidation number. That's why stability of +3 oxidation state increases from top to bottom and +5 stability decreases from top to bottom because of this inert pair effect. So this has been already you have learned in first year, children. Next, coming to the next one, that is chemical properties, reactivity towards hydrogen. So these elements combines with the hydrogen, they form EH3 type of hydrates, right children? EH3 type. E means elements of 15 group elements, that may be nitrogen, phosphorus, arsenic, antimony, bismuth. So they will form EH3 type of hydrates. Suppose in case of E, nitrogen present, then it form NH3, is it not? So EH3 type of hydrates they will form when they combine with the hydrogen, and the stability of these hydrates decreases from top to bottom. Why the stability of these hydrates decreases? So we know that top to bottom size increases, children. So as the size increases, then what happens? Bond length will also increases. If the bond length increases, then bond enthalpy decreases. So easily Bi and H bond we can able to break easily. Less amount of energy is required. So that's why the stability of these hydrates decreases from top to bottom. Only the reason top to bottom size increases. So if you write that reason, that is sufficient. Why the stability of a hydrates decreases? Because size from top to bottom increases, so bond length increases. Once the bond length increases, bond enthalpy decreases. That's why stability decreases. Now reducing character of hydrates increases. So for this also reason you can write like this only, top to bottom size increases. So reducing character means the bond length increases. They can able to give hydrogen, means they acts like a reducing agents. They oxidize themselves and reduces the other species. That's why top to bottom reducing character increases. Ammonia is mild reducing agent, whereas BiH3 is a strong reducing agent, because top to bottom reducing character increases. So same reason children, here you can write top to bottom size increases, bond length increases, bond enthalpy decreases. Because of that, they are strong reducing agents. Okay, top to bottom reducing character increases. Now basicity also decreases in the order. Basicity top to bottom decreases, children. Okay, so stability decreases and reducing character increases, but here basicity decreases. Why basicity? These hydrates are bases. Why? Lewis bases, because in all these cases they are having lone pair of electrons and central atom. In ammonia, nitrogen is having lone pair of electron. In phosphine, PH3, phosphorus is having lone pair of electron. Like that, all these hydrates are having lone pair of electrons. So because of the presence of lone pair of electrons, they can able to donate a pair of electrons. So according to Lewis theory, so the species which donate a pair of electrons is called as a base. So that's why all these hydrates are basic in nature, but donating of pair of electrons is decreases from top to bottom, because nitrogen is small in size, high electronegativities. That's why it can easily donate pair of electrons. Okay, is it clear? So now children, one more thing. In case of ammonia, nitrogen, because of its small size and a high electronegativity, it forms hydrogen bonds. That's why it exists as a liquid. Whereas in case of PH3, no such type of hydrogen bonds exist. So because of that, it is a gas. Phosphate, PH3 is a gas, and NH3 is a liquid. Why NH3 is a liquid? Because nitrogen in NH3, nitrogen is highly electronegative and a small size. So because of that, it forms hydrogen bonds. So because of these hydrogen bonds, ammonia is existing as a liquid, and phosphine is gas. So when compared with ammonia, phosphine is having more molecular mass, but it should exist as a liquid. But ammonia is existing as liquid because of the presence of hydrogen bonds, children. And because of these hydrogen bonds only, ammonia is having high melting and boiling points. Though molecular mass of ammonia is less when compared with PH3, but because of the presence of hydrogen bonds, it existing as a liquid, and it is having high melting and boiling points because of the hydrogen bonds. So these are the points you have to remember. Next, coming to the reactivity towards oxygen. So children, here these 15 group elements, when they combine with oxygen, they form two types of oxides. One is E2O3 and E2O5 type of oxides they form. So E2O3 and E2O5. In E2O3, so E is nothing but element of 15 group elements, that may be nitrogen, phosphorus, arsenic, antimony, bismuth. So in E2O3, this element is having +3 oxidation state, and in U2O5, this element is having +5 oxidation state. So here one thing you have to remember, children. So more the oxidation state, more will be the acidic nature. So here in E2O3 +3, in E2O5 +5. So more oxidation state. So in this oxide, the element is having more oxidation state. That's why it is more acidic when compared with E2O3. E2O5 is having more acidic nature. Is it clear? Higher the oxidation state, higher will be the acidic nature. So in case of E2O3 and E2O5, E2O5 is having more acidic nature. Next coming to the acidic character decreases down the group. We know, children, top to bottom metallic character increases. Non-metallic oxides are acidic in nature and metallic oxides are basic in nature. Very important point. Metallic oxides are basic in nature and non-metallic oxides are acidic in nature. Top metallic increase in metallic character. So what happens? Acidic character of these oxides also decreases. So oxides of E2O3 of nitrogen and phosphorus are purely acidic because nitrogen and phosphorus are non-metals. So because of that, E2O3 type of oxides are acidic in nature, whereas arsenic and antimony are amphoteric in nature. Amphoteric means they can able to show both acidic and basic in nature. Okay, so antimony, arsenic and antimony are metalloids. Because of that, their oxides are having amphoteric nature, means they can able to show both acidic and basic nature. Next, bismuth is metal, so because of that, its oxide is basic in nature. So this is about reactivity towards oxygen. Next, coming to reactivity towards halogens. So these compounds, these elements, when they combine with the halogens, they form EX3 and EX5 type of halides, so children. So in EX3, element is having +3 oxidation state. In EX5, element is having a +5 oxidation state. What is E? E is 15 group element, that is nitrogen, phosphorus, arsenic, antimony, and bismuth. So they will form EX3 and EX5 type of halides. So EX5 type of halides are having more covalent nature than compared with EX3, because in EX3 the element is having more oxidation state, and because of that it is having a polarizing capacity, children. So we will discuss in PCl5. So EX5, in case of EX5, the element attains polarization, polarity, so it will attract the bond pair of electrons towards it. So because of that, EX5 type of halides are having a more covalent nature when compared with the trihalides. Next, coming to reactivity towards metals, when these 15 group elements, when they combine with the metals, when they react with the metals, they form binary compounds. So we can see them in binary compounds, they show -3 oxidation state, because metals, since the metals, they show positive charge. So because of that, they show -3 oxidation state. We can see some compounds. So when nitrogen combines with calcium, it forms calcium nitrate, Ca3N2, and phosphorus when combined with calcium, it gives calcium phosphide, Ca3P2. And so when it combines with sodium, arsenic when combined with sodium forms sodium arsenide. And when zinc, antimony when combined with zinc gives zinc antimonide, and the bismuth when combined with magnesium gives magnesium bismuthide. So these are the binary compounds when these 15 group elements combines with the metals. So in these binary compounds, these elements shows -3 oxidation state. So these are the chemical properties of 15 group elements, children. Till now we have discussed atomic properties and physical properties and chemical properties of 15 group elements. Now let us see the dinitrogen. So dinitrogen preparation, children. So this is a dinitrogen means N2. Dinitrogen, you know that in the atmosphere 78% is dinitrogen. So in commercially, dinitrogen can be prepared just simply fractional distillation of liquefied air. Liquefied air on fractional distillation, first nitrogen gas comes out, children. So commercially nitrogen can be prepared by fractional distillation of liquefied air, and in the laboratory dinitrogen can be prepared. See, children, first one, dinitrogen is prepared by treating aqueous solution of ammonium chloride with the sodium nitrite. So ammonium chloride, NaHO4Cl, when combined with the aqueous solution of ammonium chloride, when combined with the aqueous solution of sodium nitrite, NaNO2, it gives dinitrogen, N2 plus water plus sodium chloride. Okay, so commercially it is prepared from fractional distillation of liquefied air, and in laboratory, when aqueous solution of ammonium chloride and aqueous solution of sodium nitrate, they combine, they give nitrogen gas. And another one is thermal decomposition of ammonium dichromate. See children, this is ammonium dichromate, NaHO4 twice Cr2O7. So which on thermal decomposition means which on heating it gives nitrogen. Okay, first laboratory method is ammonium chloride and sodium nitrate gives nitrogen gas, and the thermal decomposition of ammonium dichromate gives the nitrogen gas. And one more method is when sodium or barium azide, when it is heated, means thermal decomposition gives nitrogen gas. So these are the three methods for the preparation of dinitrogen. Okay, so in a laboratory, and this is the commercial method, fractional distillation of air gives dinitrogen, and when ammonium chloride treated with sodium nitrate gives dinitrogen, and the thermal decomposition of ammonium dichromate gives dinitrogen, and the thermal decomposition of sodium or barium azide gives dinitrogen. So these are the reactions, children. You can see that by byproducts also you have to write H2O and Cr2O3, what is chromium trioxide, and water in case of thermal decomposition of ammonium dichromate. And in case of thermal decomposition of barium azide gives nitrogen gas and barium. So these are the three methods of preparation in the laboratory, and this is the commercial method for the preparation of nitrogen gas. Now coming to the properties of dinitrogen. So you know children, dinitrogen, it is a colorless, odorless, tasteless and a non-toxic gas, because in the atmosphere we can feel that. So it is a colorless, odorless and tasteless and non-toxic gas. So it is having two isotopes. So what are isotopes, children? Having same species which are having same atomic number but different mass number. See here, atomic number is say 7 only for this nitrogen. So but mass number see 14 and 15. So the species which are having same atomic number but different mass number are called as isotopes. So nitrogen shows two types, two isotopes, that is nitrogen N14 and N15, and it is having very low solubility in water, that is 23.2 centimeter cube per liter, children. So very low solubility. Next, low freezing and boiling points. That's why in fractional distillation first nitrogen gas comes out. Okay, so next, dinitrogen is inert at room temperature. This point is very important, children. Nitrogen, in between nitrogen there is a triple bond. Okay, so one is the sigma and two pi bonds are present, so there is a triple bond between nitrogen and nitrogen atom. So that's why it acts as an inert gas at a room temperature, because the once three bonds, for to break three bonds high energy is required. That's why it acts as inert at a room temperature, but at higher temperatures it can able to react and it can able to form compounds. Okay, so with the metals it form ionic nitrates, and with non-metals it form covalent nitrates, but at a higher temperature, but not at a room temperature. But room temperature it acts as an inert gas, because there is a triple bond between two nitrogen atoms. So to break three bonds, high energy is required. That's why nitrogen acts as an inert gas at a room temperature. But at a high temperature it can able to react with metals, and it can able to react with non-metals also. In these two reactions it is reacting with metals. In these two reactions it is reacting with non-metals, children. So with metals it forms ionic nitrates. So with lithium, the nitrogen reacts to give lithium nitrate. With magnesium, nitrogen reacts to give magnesium nitride. Okay, so now with non-metals, nitrogen, when it reacts with hydrogen, it gives ammonia. Okay, so we have a process, very important process. We'll discuss now, children. So when nitrogen combines with the hydrogen at a high temperature, so it gives ammonia. So at some certain conditions in presence of catalyst also, we have to consider, because in normal situation nitrogen it will not react, so special optimum conditions are required to react nitrogen with the hydrogen to get a more yield of ammonia, because ammonia is very important product industrially. Okay, so next nitrogen, when it combines with oxygen, gives nitric oxide. So it is also at a high temperature, children, 2000 Kelvin temperature. It gives when nitrogen reacts with oxygen, gives nitric oxide. So this is about methods of preparation and properties of dinitrogen, children. Now coming to the uses of now coming to the preparation of ammonia. Now see, children, ammonia can be prepared. Another important compound of 15 group elements is ammonia. So ammonia can be prepared like this. See, ammonia is present in small quantities in air and soil, where it is formed by the decay of nitrogenous organic compounds. So ammonia is present in air as well as in soil, because some organic compounds like urea, when they decompose, they give ammonia. See, children, so you can see the reaction. This is the formula of urea. NH2CO NH2 plus H2O is gives to ammonium carbonate. First it gives, and after decomposition of this ammonium carbonate, it gives ammonia. So this is the natural method that occurs in nature. So that's why small quantities of ammonia is present in air and soil, because of the decomposition of decay of nitrogenous organic compound. So small quantities of ammonia can be prepared in laboratories by simply treating the salts of ammonia. So these are the salts of ammonia, see, children, ammonium chloride and ammonium sulfate. So these are the salts of ammonia. When they treat with calcium hydroxide and caustic soda, sodium hydroxide is called as caustic soda. When the salts of these ammonia, when they treat with calcium hydroxide and caustic soda, the form ammonia. For example, ammonia chloride, when it is treated with the calcium hydroxide, gives ammonia plus water plus calcium chloride. And ammonia sulfate, when it is treated with the caustic soda, sodium hydroxide, gives ammonia plus water plus sodium sulfate. So these are the laboratory methods. So this is naturally occurring method, and these are the laboratory methods to children. But commercially, ammonia can be prepared by Haber's process in large scale. So see, children, very simple reaction. Nitrogen, when reacts with hydrogen, gives ammonia. Now let us see the optimum conditions in Haber's process. Very simple, children, but it is important. So ammonia can be prepared by Haber's process. N2 plus 3H2 is gives rise to 2 NH3. But see the optimum conditions. Pressure is 200 to 10 to the power 200 into 10 to the power of 5 Pascal, or 200 atmospheric pressure is required, and temperature is nearly equal to 700 Kelvin, and catalyst is iron oxide along with small quantities of potassium oxide and aluminium oxide. So along with that, molybdenum acts as a promoter. What is a promoter? Promoter is a nothing but it is a substance which increases the activity of catalyst. Here iron oxide is the catalyst. Along with iron oxide, some quantities of potassium oxide and aluminium oxide is also considered. So along with that, molybdenum is considered as a promoter, which increases the activity of iron. So this is called as Haber's process, children. Again, I'm repeating. So in large scale, ammonia can be prepared by Haber's process. Very important, because ammonia is very important to product, children. So nitrogen, when it combines with the hydrogen, gives ammonia, and optimum conditions are 200 atmospheric pressure, and temperature is 700 Kelvin, and catalyst is iron oxide along with the small quantities of potassium oxide and aluminum oxide, with molybdenum as a promoter. You can see this flow chart, children. Now hydrogen and nitrogen are passed through the compressor, so which maintains 200 atmospheric pressure. When this compressor gas is passed through the chamber, which is having a catalyst, so here iron oxide along with aluminum oxide and potassium oxide. So this is the chamber, catalyst chamber, and this catalyst chamber is maintained at 700 Kelvin temperature. So then what happens? Nitrogen and oxygen, hydrogen, both they combine, they form ammonia. So that liquid ammonia is passed through like this. Okay, so when whatever the nitrogen and the hydrogen which is not reacted, it is again pumped through this by using this pump. It is again passed through this catalyst chamber. Again they react and they form ammonia. So like that. So Haber's process is used to prepare ammonia. So these are the methods of preparation of ammonia, children. So ammonia is having physical properties of ammonia: colorless gas, and less pungent smell. It is having less dense than air, and alkaline gas. It is because when it is dissolved in water, it gives OH minus ions, and very soluble in water. It is highly soluble in water. So these are the physical properties of ammonia. Next, coming to the structure of ammonia, children. So now this is having a pyramidal structure. So nitrogen in NH3, nitrogen undergoes sp3 hybridization, and a lone pair of electrons are present on nitrogen. It is having one lone pair of electron and lone pair of electrons and 3 bond pair of electrons. See children, these are the 3 bond pair of electrons and 1 lone pair of electron, right children? And because actually it is undergoing sp3 hybridization, so it should have it is having a lone pair of electron, 1 lone pair of electron and bond pair of electron. Nitrogen is undergoing sp3 hybridization. So actually in case of sp3 hybridization, it should have tetrahedral shape, is it not? But here, because of the presence of lone pair of electrons, it acquires a trigonal pyramidal structure, children. So actually it should have tetrahedral structure because nitrogen is undergoing sp3 hybridization. In case of sp3 hybridization, it should consist of tetrahedral structure, but because of the presence of lone pair of electrons, it is having a trigonal pyramidal structure. And actually it should have 109.5 degrees bond angle, but because of the repulsion of lone pair and bond pair, so the bond angle decreases. So because of that, the angle is 107.8 degrees. Is it clear, children? Again, I'm repeating, ammonia structure is very important from 10th class. Is it not? So ammonia is having a trigonal pyramidal structure. In case of ammonia, nitrogen is undergoing sp3 hybridization. It is having 3 bond pair of electrons and 1 lone pair of electron. Actually, it should consist tetrahedral structure, but because of the presence of these lone pair of electron, it is acquiring trigonal pyramidal structure. And bond angle, it should consist of 109 degrees, 109.5 degrees. But because of the lone pair and bond pair repulsion, bond angle decreases and it gives 107.8 degrees. So this is about the structure of ammonia. Next, chemical properties of ammonia, children. So till now we have discussed the preparation of ammonia and physical properties of ammonia and structure of ammonia. Now let us see the chemical properties of ammonia. So we know that already in physical property we have seen that ammonia is highly soluble in water. So once it is soluble in water, it forms alkali. So see children, why it forms alkali? Because it gives OH minus ion. That's why. So NH3, when it dissolved in water, it gives NH4 plus and OH minus ion. That's why it is having it is basic in nature. So since it is basic in nature, so it basic in nature, it can able to react with acids and can able to form salts. Because see children, when ammonia solution means NH4OH, when it reacts with hydrochloric acid, it forms NH4Cl. Since it is having basic nature, ammonium hydroxide, when it reacts with the HCl acid, it gives ammonium chloride, and when it reacts with the sulfuric acid, it forms ammonium sulfate. So like that, ammonium solution, that is NH4OH solution, is having basic nature because it gives OH minus ions. That's why it reacts with acids to form salts. When it is reacts with HCl, it gives ammonium chloride. When it reacts with the sulfuric acid, it forms ammonium sulfate. Is that clear, children? Next, one more thing. So as a weak base, you know that ammonium hydroxide, NH4OH, is having a weak basic in nature. So it precipitates hydroxides and hydrated oxides. So when case of zinc sulfate, when it combined with zinc sulfate, it gives hydroxide, zinc hydroxide. Zinc sulfate is a colorless solution. When it reacts with zinc sulfate, so it gives white precipitate. So this is used to identify zinc, Zn2+ ions, children. So in case of qualitative analysis, this reaction is used. Okay, ZnSO4 NH4OH is gives rise to ZnOH twice. So zinc sulfate is colorless solution, aqueous solution. When it is reacts with ammonium hydroxide, it precipitates as hydroxide, ZnOH twice, which is a white color precipitate. Okay, so and ammonium sulfate. So this reaction is used to identify zinc in the salt, right? Next, one more thing is it can also precipitate the salts into hydrated oxides. For example, ferric chloride, aqueous solution of ferric chloride, when it treated with ammonium hydroxide, it gives ferric oxide, hydrated ferric oxide. See, children, so Fe2O3 along with Fe2O3, X molecules of water is present, which is a brown colored one, brown color precipitate. So like that, we can able to use ammonium hydroxide for solution of ammonia, is also called as ammonium hydroxide, used to identify such type of elements in the solution. Next one is very important reactions, children. So you know that in ammonia, lone pair of electrons are present on nitrogen. So because of that, it acts as a Lewis acid. So sorry, Lewis base. Ammonia is a Lewis base because it can able to donate a lone pair of electrons. In ammonia, lone pair of electrons is present, so it can able to donate a lone pair of electrons. So that's why, so with the copper, Cu2+ is a d block element which is having many empty orbitals. So ammonia, it can able to donate a pair of electrons and it can able to form a complex compound. See, children, whenever a compound is represented with square brackets, it is a complex compound. So ammonia is having lone pair of electron, it can able to donate a pair of electrons to it, and it can able to form coordinate covalent bond and form complex compounds. So it is blue in color. When it is treated with ammonia, it form a complex compound, tetraamine copper 2 ion. Okay, similarly, silver chloride is having white colored precipitate. When silver chloride treated with ammonia, it forms a complex compound, that is diamine silver 2 chloride. So it is a complex compound because on ammonia, lone pair of electrons are present. So they can able to donate and they can able to form coordinate covalent bond and they can able to form complex compounds. Is it clear, children? So these are the chemical properties of ammonia. Now coming to last topic. So uses of ammonia. So ammonia is used in many industries. So making of fertilizers, manufacture of nitric acid, and revive fainted people. Next, electrolyte in dry cells, prevent coagulation of latex. So making of explosives, synthetic fiber. Next, cooling agent. So uses of ammonia. See, children, just go through this chart. It is very easy to remember. Making of fertilizers, manufacture nitric acid, revive fainted people because it is in ammonia is used to revive fainted people. Next, electrolyte in dry cells. So next, prevent coagulation of latex. Next, precipitation of latex can be prevented by using ammonia. Making of explosives, synthetic fibers preparation also ammonia used. So it is used as a cooling agent. Is it clear, children? So these are the uses of ammonia. So now till now I think you have understood well, children, till now what we have discussed. So just let's see occurrence of these 15 group elements we have seen. Next, in atomic properties, electronic configuration, that is general electronic configuration, NS2 and P3 configuration we have seen. Atomic size top to bottom increases, ionization enthalpy decreases top to bottom because atomic size increases, and electronegativity also decreases from top to bottom because on increasing the atomic size from top to bottom, electronegativity decreases. So in physical properties also we have seen metallic nature top to bottom increases, so except nitrogen remaining all shows allotropic forms. Next, chemical properties, when they combine with the hydrogen, oxidation states means they can show +3, +5 and -3 general oxidation states, so children. Okay, so next, reactivity towards hydrogen, they form EH3 type of hydrates they can form, and reactivity towards oxygen, they form E2O3 type and E2O5 type of oxides they can form, and reactivity towards halogens, they form EX3 and EX5 type of two types of halides they can form. Reactivity towards metals, so we have seen binary compounds they can form. In that, -3 is the oxidation state of these elements. So dinitrogen preparation we have seen, children, and ammonia preparation and properties. Next, their uses also we have seen. So in that, Habermas process is very important. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity, ma'am. Sorry.
Thank you, Madhavi madam. Thank you. Indeed, it was a very explanative and wonderful session. So thank you very much. And dear children, please remember about the anomalous behavior of nitrogen. See, just now madam told that the common oxidation states of 5A group elements. Madam, isn't it? Like madam told that what are the common oxidation states? It is +3 and +5. And few elements can exhibit -3. But why nitrogen doesn't exhibit +5 oxidation state? See, please search out the reason for that. Why? Because it doesn't have the vacant d orbitals. See, it doesn't have the d orbital, so it cannot extend its hybridization and the oxidation state. See, such topics will be very interesting in chemistry. See, please read the textbooks, because already you have collected your textbooks, children, and please learn the concept and try to strengthen your subject. So thank you, Madhavi ma'am, and once again we'll meet tomorrow. So tomorrow you are going to explain about the remaining topics, isn't it, ma'am? See, tomorrow you will be explaining about the oxides of nitrogen and the halides, right? And then the oxy acids of nitrogen and phosphorus. Okay.
Yes,
so thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your wonderful session. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You.
Thank you.